Commander Sarah Chen watched the holographic display with studied calm as another burst of Nexari propaganda filled the bridge of the UES Sentinel. Their latest transmission was particularly condescending, even by alien standards. Humans, the metallic voice of High Commander Zarkax resonated through the speakers. Your persistence would be admirable if it weren't so primitive. That vessel you call a warship, it's hardly worth the energy our sensors expend to track it. Withdraw now, and we might spare your colony worlds the embarrassment of watching their last hope limp home in defeat. Chen's lip curled slightly, but she maintained her composure. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work with practiced precision, though she could sense their contained anger. The Sentinel's bridge was a marvel of human engineering, compact, efficient, and purposefully understated. Nothing like the crystalline cathedrals the Nexari built their ships around. Status of our engine troubles, Lieutenant Rodriguez, Chen asked, keeping her voice just loud enough for the still open communication channel to pick up. Running at 17% efficiency, Commander, Rodriguez replied, fighting to keep the amusement from his voice. The containment field is struggling, just as planned. Through the main viewport, the massive forms of 3 Nexari dreadnoughts loomed against the starfield. Their biocrystal hulls pulsed with what humans had dubbed arrogance lighting, a display of power meant to intimidate. The ships were beautiful in their alien way, all sweeping lines and organic curves, a stark contrast to the Sentinel's deliberately utilitarian design. Tactical, what's their formation telling us? Chen asked, turning to Lieutenant Commander Patil at the weapons station. They're not even trying to mask their approach vectors, Commander, Patil reported, dark eyes scanning her displays. Standard superiority formation. They're making it obvious they don't consider us a threat. Chen nodded, pleased. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The Sentinel had spent the last 3 weeks playing the part of a struggling, outdated warship on a desperate mission to protect the Arcturus colonies. Every movement had been calculated to reinforce the Nexari's presumptions about human technological inferiority. Time to intercept? Chen asked. 17 minutes at current speeds, Rodriguez answered. They're taking their time, really savoring it. Chen stood from her command chair and walked to the tactical station, studying the detailed sensor readings of the approaching Nexari vessels. Their shield harmonics were exactly what intelligence had predicted. The Nexari were nothing if not consistent in their arrogance. Send the coded burst to Arcturus, she ordered. Let them know Phase 1 is complete. The message would take hours to reach the colonies, but Chen knew Admiral Zhang would be waiting for it. The entire operation hinged on convincing the Nexari that they had caught a lone vulnerable human warship far from support. They're hailing us again, Communications Officer Park announced, unable to completely hide his disdain. Put them through, Chen commanded, returning to her chair. Let's hear what other insults they've prepared. Your ship's power emissions are failing. Zarkax's voice dripped with false concern. Shall we send a shuttle to evacuate your crew before your systems collapse entirely? I promise they will be treated humanely in our education centers, where they can learn the proper way to build starships. Chen leaned forward, finally ready to play her part. High Commander, she replied, letting a hint of desperation enter her voice. Our mission is to protect the colonies. We will not abandon our duty. A sound like crystalline wind chimes echoed through the bridge. Nexari laughter. Admirable, but futile. Zarkax responded. Very well. We will make this quick, at least. It would be beneath us to prolong the suffering of such a primitive vessel. The communication cut off, and Chen allowed herself a genuine smile. Below decks, hidden behind layers of sophisticated sensor bafflers, the Sentinel's true weapons stirred to life. The product of years of careful research and development, they were unlike anything the Nexari had encountered, because they had been specifically designed to exploit the one weakness the aliens didn't believe they had. All hands, Chen announced shipwide. Prepare for Phase 2. Let's show our friends out there why it's dangerous to underestimate humanity. The bridge crew straightened in their seats, professional masks giving way to determined grins. They had trained for months for this moment, knowing that success could change the course of the war. The Sentinel might appear slow and vulnerable, but appearances, as humanity had learned long ago, could be deceiving. And the Nexari were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Lieutenant Commander Patel's fingers danced across her tactical display as she fine-tuned the Sentinel's experimental weapon systems. The Nexari dreadnoughts had moved into attack formation, their biocrystal hulls pulsing with increasing intensity. Through the view screen, their massive forms cast elongated shadows across the stars, a reminder of humanity's supposed technological inferiority. Power signatures from the enemy vessels are spiking, Rodriguez reported from his station. They're charging their main weapon arrays, still running standard shield configurations. They haven't adjusted their harmonics at all. Commander Chen nodded, satisfaction hidden beneath her stern expression. The Nexari's predictability was their greatest weakness, though they'd never admit it. Their technology was undeniably advanced, but it had remained largely unchanged for centuries. Why alter perfection, as they so often boasted? Status of our hull breaches, Lieutenant Park? Chen asked, maintaining the charade for any monitoring sensors. Venting atmosphere from decks 3 through 7, Commander, Park replied with practiced distress. Emergency force fields are struggling to compensate. He added a slight tremor to his voice that would have made any theater director proud. The bridge lighting flickered right on cue, part of their carefully orchestrated performance. In the depths of the Sentinel, hidden behind quantum masked chambers, the ship's true heart was beating stronger than ever. The culmination of Project Prometheus was about to be unveiled, and the Nexari had no idea they were playing their part perfectly. Another transmission incoming, Park announced, his console chiming softly. Your ship's structural integrity is failing, High Commander Zarkax observed, his translated voice carrying notes of smug satisfaction. I must commend your engineering teams, maintaining power to your weapons despite such catastrophic damage. Pointless, but impressive for your species. Chen rose from her command chair, assuming the rigid posture of someone trying to maintain dignity in defeat. We still have fight left in us, High Commander. Like watching an insect challenge a star, Zarkax replied. Your dedication to futility is almost inspiring. Perhaps we will preserve your vessel's wreckage as a monument to human stubbornness. The transmission ended, and Chen's posture immediately relaxed. Time to intercept. 5 minutes, Rodriguez answered. They're continuing their leisurely approach. Primary weapons are still charging. Looks like they want to make a show of it. Chen moved to Patel's tactical station, speaking in low tones. Status of the Prometheus devices. All 4 are primed and synchronized. Patel replied quietly. Quantum resonance is stable, and the targeting systems have locked onto their shield emitter patterns. We'll only get one shot at this, Commander. Chen squeezed her tactical officer's shoulder. One shot is all we need. Humanity has spent 3 years developing this technology. The Nexari have spent 3 centuries not improving theirs. The bridge fell into focused silence as the final minutes ticked by. Every crew member knew their role in what was to come. The Sentinel's apparent vulnerability had drawn the Nexari into perfect position, their formations optimized for a swift, overwhelming victory against what they perceived as inferior technology. Commander, Rodriguez called out, detecting power spikes in their forward weapon arrays. They're preparing to fire. Right on schedule, Chen murmured. She returned to her chair, keying in her command codes. All hands, this is the Commander. Prepare for Phase 3. Remember your training. Remember Earth. The Nexari ships had moved into a triangle formation, their weapon ports glowing with building energy. Their shields shimmered with complex harmonics, layers of supposedly impenetrable protection that had decimated human fleets in previous encounters. Enemy vessels are launching their final communication, Park reported, playing shipwide as requested. Brave humans, Zarkax's voice filled the bridge one final time. know that your defeat will be remembered as a testament to the futility of resistance. Your primitive technology, your limited understanding, all of it ends here. Take comfort in knowing that your species will learn from this demonstration of true power." Chen's finger hovered over the execution command. Around her, the bridge crew tensed imperceptibly, ready for what was to come. The Sentinels' deception was about to end, and with it, the Nexary's certainty in their superiority. "You're right about one thing, High Commander," Chen whispered, though the channel was already closed. "This will be remembered." Her finger descended, and deep within the Sentinel, Project Prometheus awakened. Project Prometheus activated with neither sound nor flash, nothing to betray the revolutionary technology hidden within the Sentinel's humble exterior. The only indication that anything had changed was a subtle shift in the bridge's ambient lighting, switching from standard operations to combat status. "Quantum resonance field stable," Paddle reported, her voice steady despite the tension. "Targeting solutions locked. Prometheus devices are tracking shield harmonics." Through the view screen, the three Nexary dreadnoughts continued their approach, their biocrystal hulls pulsing with building energy as they prepared to destroy what they thought was a crippled human vessel. Their formation was perfect for conventional warfare. "Transfer power to the primary capacitors," Chen ordered. "Begin the countdown." Rodriguez's hands flew across his console. "Power transfer initiated. Quantum field is reaching critical synchronization. 30 seconds to full charge." On the tactical display, the Nexary ship's weapon signatures reached their peak. They were ready to fire, ready to demonstrate their technological superiority one final time. High Commander Zarkax's vessel led the formation, its crystalline bow aimed directly at the Sentinel's heart. "Enemy vessels firing," Park announced, his voice cutting through the tension. Streams of devastating energy erupted from the Nexary ships, crossing the void with impossible grace. The attacks that had shattered so many human vessels in previous battles, that had earned the Nexary their reputation for invincibility, lanced toward the Sentinel. "Now," Chen commanded, her voice like steel. The Sentinel's true nature revealed itself in an instant. The ship's damaged hull shifted, quantum masked panels sliding aside to expose four devices unlike anything the Nexary had encountered. They were humanity's answer to 3 centuries of alien technological stagnation. Resonance inverters that turned an enemy's strength against itself. The Nexary energy weapons struck what appeared to be the Sentinel's weakened shields. But instead of destroying the human vessel, something unprecedented occurred. The Prometheus devices activated, creating a quantum feedback loop that redirected the energy through precisely calculated dimensional vectors. "Prometheus field holding steady," Paddle reported, excitement creeping into her voice. "Energy redirection at 97% efficiency, initiating Phase 2 of the counterattack." The redirected energy didn't dissipate harmlessly into space. Instead, it followed paths laid out by the Sentinel's targeting computers, paths that led directly to specific frequencies within the Nexary shields. The aliens' own weapon energy, twisted and reformed by human ingenuity, struck their supposedly impenetrable defenses at exactly the right resonance to create catastrophic harmonic disruption. "By all the stars," Rodriguez breathed as the tactical display updated. "It's working exactly as designed." The nearest Nexary dreadnought's shields flickered and failed, their perfect harmonics shattered by their own reflected power. Confusion was evident in their response. Their formation broke, each ship trying to adjust to a situation their tactical doctrine had never contemplated. "We're being hailed," Park announced. "Multiple channels." "Ignore them," Chen ordered. "Prepare secondary targeting solutions. Time to show them what else the primitive human vessel can do." The Sentinel's conventional weapons came online. Railguns, plasma lances, and graviton torpedoes that had been masked as inactive or damaged. But these weren't the standard weapons the Nexary had faced before. Each had been modified based on data gathered during previous encounters, optimized to exploit weaknesses that only became apparent when you studied an enemy who never expected to be studied. "Multiple targets locked," Patel confirmed. Ready to fire on your command. Chen stood, her posture radiating the confidence she'd hidden for so long. The Nexari made one critical mistake. She addressed her crew. They assumed that because we couldn't match their technology, we couldn't understand it. Fire all weapons. The Sentinel erupted with deadly purpose. Each shot was precisely calculated, striking the Nexari vessels in locations where their shield harmonics were still destabilized from the Prometheus counterattack. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when it couldn't adapt to humanity's innovative approach to warfare. Direct hits on all targets, Patel reported with professional satisfaction. Their primary shield generators are offline, secondary systems failing to compensate. They've lost 30% of their offensive capability. Now they'll learn, Chen said quietly, watching as the mighty Nexari dreadnoughts reeled from the assault. Humanity doesn't need to match their technology. We just needed to think differently about how to fight it. The bridge of the Sentinel thrummed with controlled energy as the crew watched the Nexari dreadnoughts struggle to recover from the initial assault. The aliens' formation had completely dissolved, their coordinated movements replaced by individual attempts to restore their shattered shield harmonics. Incoming transmission, Park announced, his tone suggesting he was struggling not to smile. It's High Commander Zarkax. Put it through, Chen ordered, settling back into her command chair. Let's hear what they think of primitive human technology now. The metallic voice that filled the bridge had lost its earlier condescension, replaced by barely contained fury. What trickery is this? Your weapons should not be capable of bypassing our shields. Interesting choice of words, High Commander, Chen replied calmly. We didn't bypass your shields. We let your own weapons do that for us. Proper analysis can make any technology predictable, even yours. A burst of untranslatable Nexari language filled the channel before Zarkax regained composure. Impossible. Our shield harmonics are beyond your species' comprehension. Our weapons are perfect. Chen interrupted, unchanging. That's exactly what we were counting on. Rodriguez, show them what else we've learned. The Sentinel's tactical officer keyed in a series of commands, and the ship's secondary weapon systems came alive. Modified graviton torpedoes launched in precise patterns, each one calibrated to exploit the now disrupted shield frequencies of the Nexari vessels. Multiple impacts confirmed, Patel reported. Their biocrystal regeneration systems are failing to compensate. We're seeing cascade failures across their defensive grid. The largest Nexari dreadnought, Zarkax's flagship, attempted to bring its main weapons to bear again. The crystalline weapon ports began to pulse with familiar energy, but something was wrong. The perfect harmonics that had made their weapons so devastating were now working against them. Their weapon signatures are destabilizing, Rodriguez warned. I think they're trying to modify their attack pattern, but their systems aren't designed for rapid adaptation. Chen nodded. That's what happens when you don't innovate for 3 centuries. You forget how. She turned to Patel. Target their secondary power nodes. Let's show them what human ingenuity can really do. The Sentinel moved with surprising agility for a ship that had appeared so cumbersome earlier. Its next volley struck with surgical precision, each hit calculated to compound the damage already done to the Nexari shields. The aliens' biocrystal hulls, designed to be self-repairing, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the unfamiliar attack patterns. Commander, Park called out urgently, detecting power spikes from all 3 vessels. They're attempting to synchronize their remaining shields. Chen leaned forward, genuinely interested. First sign of adaptation. Looks like they can learn. She turned to Patel. Analysis. They're trying to create a unified defense grid, Patel replied, studying her readings. It might work against conventional weapons, but a small smile crossed her face. They still don't understand what they're dealing with. The Nexari ships drew closer together, their damaged hulls pulsing with renewed energy as they attempted to combine their defensive capabilities. It was an impressive display of coordination, but it played directly into the Sentinel's hands. "They're broadcasting again," Park announced. "Your deception ends here," Zarkax declared, though his voice lacked its former certainty. "Our combined shields cannot be penetrated by conventional weapons." Chen finished for him. "You're right. Good thing we didn't bring any of those." Patel, activate all Prometheus devices simultaneously. Let's show them why adaptation needs to be constant, not reactive. All 4 of the Sentinel's quantum resonance devices powered up at once, their energy signatures carefully calibrated to interact with the Nexary's newly synchronized shield network. The result was spectacular. The combined defensive field that should have made them invulnerable, instead, created a perfect conductivity network for the Prometheus effect. "Shield synchronization is actually amplifying our counter-resonance," Rodriguez reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "Their entire defensive grid is collapsing." Through the view screen, the crew watched as waves of energy cascaded across the Nexary formation. Their beautiful biocrystal hulls, designed to channel and enhance their shield harmonics, now transmitted disruptive frequencies throughout their entire defense system. "Your arrogance blinds you, High Commander," Chen said into the still-open channel. "You assumed that because we couldn't match your technology, we couldn't understand it. But humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to think beyond it." The Nexary ship's weapon ports dimmed as their power systems struggled to compensate for the cascading failures. Their once perfect formation had become a trap, each vessel's problems magnifying the difficulties of the others through their synchronized systems. "Status of enemy vessels?" Chen asked. "Their primary and secondary shields are completely offline," Paddle reported. "Weapons systems are operating at less than 20% capacity. Their biocrystal regeneration protocols are." She paused, double-checking her readings. "They're actually making things worse by trying to repair themselves using their standard protocols." Chen stood, walking to the tactical display to study the situation. The battle had shifted so dramatically that it was almost difficult to believe this was the same conflict that had begun with such apparent Nexary superiority. But she knew better than to underestimate a wounded opponent, especially one whose pride had been so thoroughly wounded. "Prepare for their counterattack," she ordered. "They may be damaged, but they're not defeated. And something tells me they're about to show us just how dangerous a technologically superior species can be when they're finally forced to innovate." The Nexary response came not with the expected fury of wounded pride, but with something far more dangerous: desperation-fueled creativity. The 3 damaged dreadnoughts began moving in patterns unlike anything recorded in human tactical databases, their biocrystal hulls pulsing with unstable but intensifying energy. "Multiple anomalous readings," Rodriguez reported, his fingers flying across his console. They're reconfiguring their entire power distribution network. Nothing like this in any of our encounter records." Commander Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes gleamed with interest. "Finally, they're learning to adapt." She moved to the tactical station. "Analysis, Patel." "They're channeling power through their secondary systems, bypassing their main conduits entirely," Paddle replied, studying the rapidly changing data. "It's incredibly inefficient, but it's making their energy signatures almost impossible to predict. Our targeting solutions are degrading." The Nexary ships had begun to move in an intricate dance, their damaged hulls leaving trails of crystalline debris that created a complex web of sensor interference. High Commander Zarkax's voice cut through the tension on the bridge, carrying notes of both rage and revelation. "You taught us something valuable, humans," he transmitted. "The price of perfection is stagnation. Let us show you what we can achieve when we abandon our certainties." The Nexary dreadnoughts suddenly accelerated, their movements no longer bound by the precise formations of their tactical doctrine. Each ship was now moving independently, creating patterns that seemed almost chaotic, but Chen recognized the underlying purpose. "They're trying to disrupt our Prometheus devices' targeting algorithms," she observed. "Clever. Very clever." She turned to her crew. "This is what we wanted, to force them to evolve. Now we prove that humanity doesn't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win. The Sentinel shuddered as the first salvos from the Nexary's reconfigured weapons struck. The attacks were weaker than their previous coordinated strikes, but they came from unpredictable angles, testing the human ship's defenses in ways their simulations hadn't predicted. Shield integrity at 87%. Rodriguez called out. Their new attack patterns are less efficient, but our countermeasures aren't as effective either. Chen smiled grimly. They've learned to sacrifice power for unpredictability. But they're still thinking like Nexary, trying to find a new perfect solution. She keyed in her command codes. Let's show them how humans fight when the rules change. Execute Adaptation Protocol Omega. The Sentinel systems responded instantly to the new commands. The Prometheus devices began cycling through frequencies randomly, no longer trying to maintain perfect resonance with the Nexary shields. Instead, they created a constantly shifting quantum field that turned the space around the ship into a chaos of reflected and refracted energy. "What are you doing?" Zarkax demanded, his transmission cutting through the electronic warfare. "Your weapon's efficiency is dropping to levels even lower than ours." "Efficiency isn't everything, High Commander," Chen replied calmly. "Sometimes you have to embrace chaos to find a new order." Patel. Execute the final phase. The Sentinel's conventional weapons opened fire, but not in the precise, calculated patterns of before. Each shot seemed random, almost careless, until the method in the madness became clear. The human ship was creating its own web of destruction, using the debris and energy discharge from its misses to herd the Nexary vessels into positions they didn't even realize they were being forced into. Enemy vessels' evasive options are reducing, Paddle reported with satisfaction. Their new movement patterns are actually making them more predictable on a macro scale. Chen nodded. They've learned to improvise, but they're still thinking in terms of individual solutions. They haven't grasped the concept of controlled chaos. She raised her voice slightly. "All hands, prepare for maximum acceleration. Rodriguez, plot an intercept course directly through their formation." The bridge crew stiffened slightly at the order, but their training held. The Sentinel's engines roared to full power, driving the ship straight toward the heart of the Nexary formation. It was a move that seemed suicidal. Exactly why it would work. "They're breaking formation," Rodriguez announced. Just as predicted, they're not willing to risk close-quarters combat with an inferior vessel. The Nexary ships scattered, their carefully coordinated chaos disrupted by the fundamental assumption that still governed their tactics. Superior technology should never risk direct confrontation with inferior forces. As they moved to avoid the Sentinel's charge, they created predictable patterns within their randomness. "Fire everything," Chen ordered. "All weapons, all Prometheus devices, maximum dispersion." The space around the Sentinel erupted with energy as every weapon system fired simultaneously. The attacks weren't aimed at where the Nexary ships were, but at where their ingrained tactical responses would force them to go. It was a strategy that could only work against an enemy that had just begun to learn adaptation, one that still clung to core beliefs even as they tried to innovate. The results were devastating. Two of the Nexary dreadnoughts collided as they attempted to avoid both the Sentinel's charge and its barrage, their damaged biocrystal hulls shattering on impact. The third, Zarkax's flagship, found itself caught in a crossfire of its own reflected energy, its hastily reconfigured systems unable to handle the feedback. "Enemy vessels have lost all power to weapons," Paddle reported. "Their hulls are breaching in multiple locations. Life support is failing." "Open a channel," Chen ordered, her voice carrying none of the triumph that shone in her eyes. This is impossible." Zarkax's voice was barely recognizable, stripped of all its former arrogance. "We adapted. We changed our tactics. We fought like humans," Chen suggested. "No, High Commander. You tried to find a new perfect solution. Humans, we embrace imperfection. We thrive in chaos. We don't adapt to win. We adapt because that's who we are. She paused, letting her words sink in. Do you wish to continue this battle, or shall we discuss terms? The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. When Zarkax finally responded, his words carried the weight of a civilization facing its first true challenge in centuries. We will discuss terms, he said quietly. Perhaps there is more for us to learn from humanity than we realized. Chen looked around at her crew. Seeing the pride and exhaustion on their faces, the Sentinel had done more than win a battle. It had forced an ancient and powerful species to confront the dangers of stagnation. Send word to Earth, she ordered Park. Tell them Project Prometheus was a success, but not in the way we expected. We didn't just prove humans could fight the Nexari. We proved we could teach them something far more valuable. The bridge crew began their post-battle procedures, but there was a new energy in their movements. They had faced the galaxy's most technologically advanced species and shown them that true superiority comes not from having the best technology, but from never stopping to believe it was the best you could achieve. As the Sentinel moved to secure its victory, Chen couldn't help but wonder what other assumptions waited to be challenged among the stars. Humanity had earned its place at the galactic table not through power or technology, but through their greatest gift, the ability to look at the impossible and ask, what if we tried something different?